In August of 2024, it's hard to find a real estate deal in the residential side. And part of that's because inventory is very low. And the reasons for that are varied, including mostly because of the lower interest rates prior to and during the pandemic. A lot of homeowners were able to purchase or refinance at very low basement interest rates, and a lot of those home owners are in golden handcuffs because they can't sell, or they're choosing not to sell because they borrowed money at such a low rate. And now with the rates north of 6%, it doesn't make a lot of sense to sell and borrow at a higher rate. But nonetheless, there are a couple of instances where deals can be had. So let's get into it. In February of 2023, I was running around frantically on a winter day, and it was snowing, and I remember I had to run to the office to mail a homeowners association check because I was behind on my dues. They had raised the dues and I didn't know it. And I had to mail a check, and I don't even own checks. So I'm running to the bank to get a check, and I needed an envelope and a stamp, and which is fairly foreign to me. And so I walked into the office, and I had a sick son in the car that I picked up from school early. I'm in my ski gear, and one of my colleagues, my associate Travis, was telling me one of his dry, corny jokes, and I really didn't have time for the banter. And as I grabbed the envelope and the stamp from the office to mail this homeowners association check, there was a cheeky gentleman standing at the window looking at the homes that were being advertised by our agency. And I never let an opportunity pass me by when there is somebody standing at the window. So I went out to him, and he said to me, "Hey mate, what's it like having a wife here?" And I, very tongue-in-cheek, said, "I don't know, I got rid of mine." And he laughed. He said, "I like you, what'll $5 million buy me?" Now, I really didn't get rid of my wife. It was a amicable separation, and she's a wonderful woman, truly. Nonetheless, we looked on the multiple listing service at that time in February of 2023, and there were 3 or 4 properties that fit the criteria for what he and his wife were looking for. And those properties ultimately didn't work for them. So what we did is we loaded up in my car with their 2 kids in the back, and we drove around neighborhoods here in the Vail Valley that had homes in that $5 million price range. And I had just said to him, I said, why don't you, anytime you see a home in these neighborhoods that you like, let's write down the address, and I will find out who owns these homes, and I will call them, and I will compel them to sell. And we had some luck with it. There were a few homes that weren't on the market, and I looked up the owner information, found their phone number, called them, and asked them if they would be interested to sell. And we looked at 2 homes under this condition, and I think we located somewhere north of 50 homes that they were interested in. And ultimately, of the 2 homes that we found, we couldn't come to a price agreement. And so we continued our search and were patient. And in May of 2023, a home came up on the market that was quite a bit north of the $5 million sweet spot. But we really liked the home. And sure enough, when we were looking at this particular home, the seller disclosed to us that he was going through a divorce, which he shouldn't have done, because that home, it was a 5,400 square foot home, single family home, and there were comparable properties that had previously sold that made a strong argument that it really was a $6 million home, and their asking price was $5,995. But I knew, because this seller was going through a divorce, I knew in the back of my mind that they needed to liquidate based on what he was communicating to us verbally and non-verbally. We were under the impression that it was a dire situation, at least from a standpoint that they needed to liquidate this asset, to split it and go their separate ways. So we had this up our sleeves, knowing that it was a distressed property from a standpoint that there was a liquidity move that was imminent. And once we recognized that this home suited their needs, I told them that we should make a strong $5 million offer and not a dollar more, knowing fair and well that there was a likely $1 million in equity if we were to get it at $5 million. And there was a likelihood we would be able to, because the owner was under duress. And sure enough, when we made the offer, they had countered at, I can't remember exactly, but it was in the high fives. And we were steadfast and patient and stuck to our $5 million offer. And ultimately, we were able to purchase the property for that price. So there are deals to be found despite inventory being low. Right now it's in the high 400s in the Vail Valley, and many years it's in the 700 or 800s. And again, that's perpetuated by many homeowners not willing to sell because of their low interest rate that they're currently married to, and despite having lots of equity in the home. And that's the major reason why inventory is low. And because of that, sellers are bullish on keeping their prices, their asking prices, inflated and relatively high. So, two scenarios that are likely: if you find a home where the owners, there is a marital separation, or if there is a death in the family, and maybe not specifically in the family, but if one of the homeowners have deceased and there's a joint tenancy or a tenancy in common where the surviving spouse needs to liquidate or they want to downsize, those are two, and it's not limited to those two, but those are the two primary factors that can affect finding a deal in this current marketplace. Hope this information was informative to you. Be good. Have a good weekend.